The president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, condemned the destabilizing actions taking place in the country against democracy. In France, the left claims President Emmanuel Macron is stealing the legislative election from the people by appointing conservative Michel Barnier as prime minister and rejecting to appoint economist Lucie Castex. And thousands of people took to the streets in Yemen on Friday to demonstrate against the Israeli genocide in Palestine. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, condemned the destabilizing actions taking place in the country against democracy. The head of state ratified this Friday that her government belongs to the people and that she will continue defending their rights in spite of the complex circumstances the country is going through due to the interference of the United States. The president pointed out that her government is facing a crisis and assured to be ready to repel the attacks in defense of the will of the Honduran people. Xiomara Castro emphasized that the armed forces, the popular organizations and the unity of the Free Party will defend democracy, its independence, sovereignty and dignity without forgetting to be an axis of anti-imperialist resistance. In this context, Honduran President Xiomara Castro stressed that her administration seeks to recover the economy from the debt left by past governments.
We received a country in rags. That is the depth of what we received. And we always said that this government was going to be a transitional one, from dictatorship to democracy. How much we have done, and we are building, not only in the different towns and cities. We are building a different country. We started by organizing the finances of the state that before were managed with trusts. I am paying penny after penny the debts that the country acquired in the last government.
In Venezuela, the Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, who is also Venezuela's Minister of Energy and Petroleum, has toured the Orinoco oil belt to see that the industry continues to strengthen. The facility, one of the most important in the country and named after Commander Hugo Chavez, was toured by the delegation, which also included the President of Petróleos de Venezuela, Héctor Obregón, and in a leading role, the plant's workers. During the visit to the facility located in the south of the country, which extends over 5 states, they reviewed the recovery and development plans and reaffirmed the commitment to contribute to peace and the growth of the country. The government of Colombia reached an agreement with the transport union to end a nationwide strike over the increase in diesel prices. This way, the compromise came after 4 days of the national action that caused blockades in several cities of the country. Regarding the agreement, the Ministry of Transportation emphasized that the transporters will accept the gradual increase in diesel, which will be 800 Colombian pesos per gallon and translates to $0.19 compared to $0.46 initially intended. In addition, 14 other points were agreed upon, including the suspension of additional increases until structural transformations in the sector are achieved. Pilots of Argentina's national airline Aerolíneas Argentinas go on strike and several air routes have been cancelled at two of Buenos Aires' main airports. The Airline Pilots Association ceased activities at 5 a.m. local time and remained on strike until 2 p.m. local time, affecting 150 flights. Through social networks, the union announced that given the lack of willingness on the part of the airline to advance in a salary increase, they will begin to deepen the measures. Meanwhile, the aeronautical unions have also been actively demanding improvements for the sector's salary for 2 weeks. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In France, a poll reveals that more than 50% of the French reject the appointment of Michel Barnier as Prime Minister. The poll shows that 57% of French people distrust Barnier's abilities as Prime Minister, as well as political class of the authorities. The text reflects the dissatisfaction and growing fatigue on the political class and the general atmosphere of distrust towards successive leaders. In this regard, the leftist leader and founder of France Insoumise, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, stated that the appointment of Barnier as Prime Minister would not have majority support in the National Assembly. He also denounced the thief of the results of the legislative elections of July 7th. Mélenchon argued that the new Prime Minister Barnier has no relation to the results of the elections, and his position would be promoted by the ultra-right wing of Marine Le Pen. For its part, the French Socialist Party announced that it will censure the government of the new Prime Minister Michel Barnier, considering that it lacks political and democratic legitimacy. The Socialists pointed out that in the last legislative elections, the New Popular Front won 193 deputies in the National Assembly. Therefore, it would be this political party that has the right to propose a new Prime Minister. In view of this fact, they are asking people to take to the streets next Saturday to protest against the appointment of Michel Barnier. In this context, French citizens have reacted to Macron's newly appointed Prime Minister, with some claiming it evidences a lack of respect for the people's voice.
It's not a surprise in the sense that Barnier's name was already out there, but it is a surprise in the sense that the Les Républicains party was largely in the minority in terms of the number of members of parliament. So it's an anomaly that it should be a politician from that party who is appointed Prime Minister. It's astonishing.
It's boring. It's like a huge denial. It proves a lack of respect for the voice of the people. The majority of French people voted for the New Popular Front. It would be a question of playing the game, Macron, anyway.
In China, more than 400,000 citizens were evacuated due to floodings caused by the arrival of Typhoon Yagi in Hainan province in the south of the country. The heavy rainfall caused the suspension of educational and work activities, in addition to the interruption of the electric service that affected the operation of ports, airports, and other basic services. Residents improvised barriers with sandbags on the periphery of residential areas due to the risk of flooding. Authorities confirmed that other provinces such as Guangdong and Guizhou were affected and activated maximum alerts to protect the population. The National Meteorological Authorities stated that Yagi is the strongest autumn typhoon ever to strike the Asian country. In this context, Vietnamese meteorological authorities issued an alert for the arrival of Typhoon Yagi and ordered the withdrawal of fishing vessels as well as the preventive evacuation in some northern regions of the country. Additionally, the Vietnamese government suspended activities at ports and airports, including the Hanoi International Airport. They also urged the population to stay indoors for their safety. We have a second show break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Myanmar, at least 13 people were killed on Friday after a Burmese military junta carried out an air raid against the city of Nak Kham near the northeastern border with China. According to the website of Tang National Liberation Army, which controls the city since December 2023, a Burmese army plane dropped bombs early Friday morning on at least 2 points of the city, killing at least 13 people and wounding 11 others, including women and children. Rescue operations still continue searching for bodies under the rubble of the houses and buildings destroyed by the attack. The government of Russia announced on Friday it will impose restrictions on U.S. media, an action that comes in response to Washington's sanctions against Russian media outlets. The restrictions were announced on Friday by the spokesman of the presidential office, Dmitry Peskov, in reference to the coercive measures imposed on media outlets such as Sputnik and some of its workers. For his part, the Russian ambassador accredited in Washington, Anatoly Antonov, assured that sanctions have become a kind of discipline in political sports for the United States. Furthermore, the diplomat stressed that these measures are aimed at pressuring independent countries and highlight the risk of a dollar-centered system. In the Philippines, the former mayor of Bamban, Alice Leal Wo, was extradited back to the country early Friday after being arrested in Indonesia. Wo, who had been on the run since July, is accused of human trafficking and links to organized crime, specifically involving a gambling center where hundreds were allegedly forced to run scams or face torture. Her escape route included Malaysia and Singapore before her capture on September 3, 2024. Upon arrival in Manila, she was taken into custody by national police. Wo faces multiple charges, including graft and money laundering. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. called her capture a significant step in combating crime. Thousands of people took to the streets in Yemen on Friday to demonstrate against the Israeli genocide in Palestine. Around 70 massive rallies were registered in the country as part of the weekly mobilizations of solidarity with the Arab country. The demonstrators waved Yemeni and Palestinian flags and chanted slogans in favor of the Palestinian cause. The organizers of the rallies issued a statement criticizing the Israeli regime for what they described as their crime of the century in Gaza and against the Western supporters of the Tel Aviv regime. In the statement, they also said the mass rallies will continue until the victory of Gaza, emphasizing that the Yemeni nation will stand firm in its principled support for the oppressed Palestinian people.
The Western countries that supply the Zionist enemy with weapons to kill our Arab people in Palestine are very biased countries and are aligned with the enemy, so we consider their condemnation of our operations in the Red Sea an attempt to protect the Zionist entity and its crimes.
A message to the European peoples. Your governments today are
A message to the European people. Your governments today are contributing to the genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza by submitting to the Americans' orders by militarizing the Red Sea. America involves you in their own problems. The solution to stop the Red Sea operations is to stop the aggression against Gaza and lift the siege. This is the easiest solution.
This is the easiest.
The Israeli occupation forces shelled the city of Rafah, south of the Gaza Strip, leaving at least 6 dead. Health authorities informed that the bodies of the victims were recovered after the airstrike and transferred to the Nasser hospital in the neighboring city of Khan Yunis. Meanwhile, emergency teams of the Palestinian Red Crescent reported injuries following other attacks by the Tel Aviv army on the center of Khan Yunis. The ongoing aggression against the Palestinian people has killed more than 40,878 people and wounded 94,454 since the October 2023 onslaught. We remember Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa, who died 26 years ago today on September 6, 1998. Kurosawa directed 30 films during a rich career that spanned over 5 decades. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential filmmakers in the history of cinema and played a bold, dynamic style strongly influenced by Western cinema but different from it. In 1990, Kurosawa won the Academy Award for Lifetime Achievement and was posthumously named Asian of the Century in the Arts, Literature and Culture by the Asian Week magazine and CNN, which considered him among the 5 people who most promptly contributed to the improvements of Asia in the 20th century. He is mostly remembered for his iconic films No Regrets for Our Youth, Scandal, Rashomon, Ikuro and The Seven Samurai, among others. And 17 years ago, on September 6, Italian opera singer Luciano Pavarotti died at the age of 71. Endowed with an intense voice in his highest notes and richness in the middle range, Pavarotti is considered one of the most famous singers of the last decades of the 20th century and the first decades of the 21st century and the best tenor in history. He sold over 100 million records and joined Spanish opera singers Plácido Domingo and José Carreras to form the so-called Three Tenors, whose first recording became the best-selling classical album of all time. During the late part of his career, Pavarotti crossed over into popular music, sharing stage with renowned singers such as Sting, Bono, Bryan Adams, Tom Jones, Celine Dion, among others. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok.